metaphor of those present here. We are a continued case. We presented that last time, and we heard very clearly the comments of the chairman and the board. We have a new set of drawings. That is, right, that's the one I want. Yep, terrific. Okay, so what I'd like to, I'm joined by the owners. I will try to articulate the need, which is actually made clear in the application. But these are two young families, all of whom work in the tech industry. They've been shut down. Their families are expanding. They would really like to add some more space to their homes in anticipation that there's very high likelihood that someone may be working from home for a very extended period of time. And should you wish to hear from them, Mr. Chairman and the board, they are available to speak.
Yeah, Campbell, I think what I'd like to do is, not to take away any thunder, but if you could just briefly show us what the original plan was that was submitted at the last hearing and the net changes and the net design change.
Yes.
We've read your plan. I think, I for one, very sympathetic to the pleadings and the need for the request that is before us. But just to sort of move along, if we could pull up what was originally proposed and what is now on the board.
CC, are you able to find that there's an image in that set? I could also share my screen if that is allowed here.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to allow you to do it, Campbell.
Okay, good.
And
let me know. I'm disabled on screen sharing right now.
hang on.
Bear with me just for a second. I'm trying to find those drawings. Okay.
You should be able to share now.
Okay, that's wonderful. Very good. Okay, super. Okay, are you able to see those?
Yes.
Okay. Renderings? Okay, so, and you can probably see my cursor as well. So this was a model, the top left and the bottom left are the model of the existing structure. It's pretty accurate. And what we had proposed at the time was a cap on the top in a much more modern articulation, where with windows that were not necessarily aligned, but had an independence to them. You can see there is a modern section of the building, which you see from the driveway side, which is actually houses the stair tower. But the comments of the chairman and the board last time were about kind of the disconnection, the fact that up on from the street, the top left was not symmetrical, that there was not a relationship of the top to the bottom. There was a bit of a battle going on with styles, and we took that really to heart. And I think our current solution really addresses those many of those things, if not all of those things. Mr. Chairman, is that
yeah, enough? And yes, and now the new.
Okay, great. CC, would you like to bring it up, or did you want me to bring it up as part of that same set?
We'll do it.
Okay, so These are just, if you just hold here for a second. So these are Mansard roofs at the top that we find around Cambridge. The addresses are underneath. And these are also interesting because the bay window that you find on the front of the building also is articulated up into the mansard. You find that it's not as prevalent as a flat mansard does happen, and it's a very elegant thing, and we feel that even that ties the building together. But Cece, if you would go now to the drawing of the elevations, which is the down right there. Yep. Super. Okay, so what we actually are presenting, we looked at several different options, and I think that the mansard structure actually works the best for a variety of reasons. One is that this building by itself, without anything, very strong presence. It has a very high parapet, as I pointed out last time. It has a very deep and overhanging parapet. And because it's high, the addition of a mansard is only about 5 feet above that. Now, often mansards are built up on top of a knee wall, so this is not uncommon also, but it actually sort of, if you will, minimizes the effect. The fact that this would be a mansard is also interesting. Obviously, this would be a dark shingle up above there on that mansard that would, I don't want to say blend in, but it would be very much appropriate. Now, this original structure, I can also point out, was built in 1902, and it would have been completely appropriate even at the time to build a mansard in 1902. And so what we're actually doing is we're creating an addition to this that is stylistically correct while still allowing that portion that you see on the driveway, which is a more modern portion, to sort of have its own existence without a lot of competition, if you will, from the top. So I'm looking, you can see on the top right of this drawing, we've taken the existing bays that are on the first and second floor and pulling those up to create a bay. We have absolutely taken the advice of the board, and we are now aligning windows and are, bringing them very tightly together, second to third floor. So this feels like a unified whole. I do want to point out just on the bottom right of this drawing, that is the side to the south. We are not requesting any windows in that. We did before, and we're not now, because that facade is way inside the allowable setback. And were we to request windows at this time, up on that third floor, it would have required a special permit, which I was told would not have been able to be heard tonight because that was new. So we feel we have a very good design. Cece, if you want to go one sheet up, that is the plan. So again, based on the advice, if you will, of the board, we have now filled in that front-facing facade so that front of the house to the street city is balanced. We have therefore then, where we had the decks, that upper right part of the drawing is the proposed new third floor. So we had the decks on the top left and the top right of that plan. Now we've actually condensed and centered. That area still does house mechanical equipment, so we didn't want to fool around with that too much and try to move that stuff around. But we think that this is now a very appropriate solution that will work kind of beautifully with the streetscape.
Yeah, the Mansard also allows you some additional square footage too.
Yeah,
Just a little bit of a bonus in a sense.
It's a little bit of a bonus, and what we did was we sort of squeezed the baths and the bedrooms, and we were able to carve out actually the whole core of this application is really that these families are out of space. They're making home offices in little alcoves of bedrooms. So that allows them to actually carve out a nice little space that they can.
Yep, good. Any questions from any members of the board? Andrea or
I have no questions.
Slater?
No, I like what I see.
Okay, Laura?
No questions.
I didn't select you last on the W's, but anyhow. Jim Monteverdi, any questions?
Hi, Jim. No questions. Thank you.
Okay. Let me open it to public comment. Any member of the public who wishes to speak should now click the button that says participants, and then click the button that says raise hand. If you are calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and unmute or mute by pressing *6. We will give you up to 3 minutes to speak. While we're waiting for any more calls to possibly come in, I will note for the record that there are approximately 8 correspondents in favor of the project and requesting that the board approve it as submitted. Any calls coming in?
Yes, Sean Henry.
Mr. Henry, if you would please speak.
Sean Henry. I am the neighbor to the direct north of this. I am very supportive of this, particularly because I like seeing families being raised in Cambridge, and I'm supportive of our neighbors.
Great, thank you for calling. Any other?
Bess Thaler.
Hi, I'm Beth Dale of 133 Elm Street on the other side. I'm also in favor of this project for the same reasons that Sean said. We want to see people able to stay in the neighborhood.
Great, thank you.
I don't see any other calls.
Seeing no other calls coming in, I will then close public comment. Let me open up the discussion that read the pleadings and fully concur that there is a need. Saw the pictures, obviously, of everybody being cramped in the existing structure. And so I'd like your revised plan. I think it works well, number one, for the petitioner, for the families, and also I think for the streetscape. It's much more pleasant and blends in much better. Any other comments by members of the board?
No comments.
No.
Ready for a motion then?
The Cubans outside of Cuba itself.
Ready.
Everyone thinks it's
Ready.
Havana, but that's just the postcard version.
Let me make a motion then to grant the request for the variance and the, as per the plan submitted, dated, I think it's May 10, and initialed by the chair with also the accompanying dimensional information. The board finds that enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would involve a substantial hardship to the petitioner. The board finds that the original structure on the lot 1902 and that the current structure is encumbered by the prevailing ordinance of this time. And as such, any expansion would require some relief from this board. The board notes that the expansion, somewhat minimus in nature, asking for a bedroom and a bathroom to accommodate a growing family, is much needed and desired, and that, as far as I'm concerned, is somewhat de minimis in nature. The board finds that the two owners of the original structure, which wish to add the building on top of the existing flat roof, hence keeping within the footprint and expanding to the side or front beyond that footprint, and therefore having less of an impact on abutters. The board finds hardship is owing to the fact that the original building, built in 1902, has not been enlarged, and in the 2011 modifications, that was done as of right, and as such, the board finds and accepts the petitioner's presentation that there was no other way to add additional space other than to go up. The board finds that relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good. The addition will not cast any significant shadows or on adjacent properties, and that the board notes the letters of support for immediate to the plan and project. The board finds that desirable relief may be granted without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent and purpose of the ordinance. The board finds that section 1.30 of the preamble specifically encourages development, proper development, to encourage housing for persons of all income levels and to encourage the most rational use of land throughout the city, and also to make adjustments to existing housing to accommodate growing families. On that basis, then I would request that the board grant the variance as being requested. Andrea, your vote?
Andrea Hickey, yes, in favor of the,
Laura?
Laura Wernick, yes, in favor.
Jim Monteverdi?
Jim Monteverdi, yes, in favor.
Slater?
Slater Anderson, yes, in favor.
And Brendan Sullivan, also in favor. 5 votes in favor. Variance is granted. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brendan. We'll now turn to our regular agenda for actually 2 cases, because they're really twin cases. They involve a structure that is proposed to be removed and rebuilt that straddles neighboring adjoining property. The cases are case number 110709, 116-118 Henry Street, and 111270, 120-122 Henry Street. Anyone here wishing to be heard on this matter? Hello?
Yes, I do. This is Barbara Bryant. I'm the owner of one of those properties.
Okay.
Hello, this is Laura Fedderson. I'm the design build contractor for Barbara's property.
All right. Are you going to make the presentation? Or
Yeah, I can present the drawings.
floor is yours, or the mic's yours.
Okay, so it's an existing garage structure that was built in 1930. And it actually straddles 2 neighboring properties, which you can see here on the plot plan. So this is 116 to 118 Henry Street. And the neighboring lot is 120 to 122. They're both 2-unit buildings. And so there's 4 parking spaces existing in this garage. And we're basically just applying to tear down the existing structure and rebuild it on exactly the same footprint. The reason is because the garage, being very old, from 1930, has fallen into disrepair, which we can see if you show some of the images of the garage structure. And we've worked with an engineer and worked with a contractor and determined that it's going to be less expensive, less complicated, and lasting if we can tear down the original structure and rebuild it.
Okay.
So we're applying for relief for the setback requirements because it does cross that property line, so it does not adhere to the side setbacks.
Okay, thank you. I mean, with regard to the structure, I think the case is pretty obvious and to me at least not controversial. But my question is the decks or the rooftop garden. If I do my math right, you're going to add 800 plus 400 square feet of garden on the top of the roof. And how high is the garage, by the way? How high?
The garage is going to be 11 foot 11, so about 12 feet high. And the top of the railing would be 14 foot 11. So still under the 15 for accessory structures.
My concern would be the disruption to the privacy of the neighboring properties. And I know a neighbor most directly affected has written a letter of support. That's fine, but there are others who will be affected. And that's an awful lot of elevated, artificial, if you will, in the sense that it's not grass or what, space. Any concerns about the impact on the neighbors?
Yeah, we have gotten support from a lot of the neighbors. We have several that have written letters of support and several that have given verbal support, which we can get some support from.
Any opposition? Did you get any people who were skeptical or concerned about the rooftop garden?
Do you speak to that, Barb?
I'm sorry?
Yes, thank you. Nope, we've got support from our everyone that we've spoken to, including the person most affected is Kim, who is currently doing some building of her own. And then the neighbors on the side of our house, who they can't really see it very well because there's trees and so on in the way. And the general response is they appreciate the effort to beautify the neighborhood by adding more green space.
Thank you. Questions from members of the board? Brent?
Brendan Sullivan, no questions.
Jim?
Hi, Jim Monteverdi, no questions.
Andrea?
Andrea Hickey, no questions.
And Laura?
Laura Wernick, no questions.
I don't have any questions beyond the one I asked, so I'm going to open this matter up to public testimony. And let me give the instructions. Any members of the public who wish to speak should now click the icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen that says raise hand. If you're calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and unmute or by pressing *6. Take a moment or two to see if anyone wishes to call in. I'm sorry?
Brad Harkavi, please.
Hi. So I guess we're a co-petitioner because we are the neighbors, but we've lived along with Barb, the other petitioner, for 20 years, and putting a rooftop garden on top of the garage is I think a spectacular improvement to what we have today, or even if we rebuilt the garages, because it's a large, heat sink black base that is neither attractive nor helpful from from sort of a environmental standpoint. And talking to particularly Kim, who's directly adjacent to it, it's a spectacular improvement. Furthermore, it's not just gardens we're looking at; it's all vegetables, which are not something you often see within an urban setting. So we are big of making this happen.
Okay, thank you for taking the time to offer your views. And I would point out that your good neighbors that you have now may not be your neighbors in the future, and the future owners of these properties could take out the garden and put a big deck out there and have basically another room, a substantial room, and could have parties and the like. You're not concerned about that? I'm not saying you should be, but I just want to make sure you understand what's involved. This is not forever. This garden with all the plantings.
I appreciate that, and I'm well aware of that.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes. Number ending 1593.
Hi, this is Kim Walker Chin. I'm the neighbor that's right next to the garage, and I'm in favor of it. Barb always do a lot of green planting on the roof, and it's beautiful. She has a lot of vegetables, and I think it will certainly improve the views coming from my property. So I am 100% behind her with her green space. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, and thank you for the time to give us your views. Anyone else?
No.
Okay, there's no other person wishing to speak, and so I will close public testimony. I would report that we have letters, or maybe I look letter, singular, in the files in support of the project. Nothing in opposition. So with that, I will close public testimony. Discussion, or I can put a motion on the table and we can vote on it.
This is Brendan Sullivan. One thought that I had, and I know how we look somewhat aghast at decks, and possible impact on neighbors. And I think that the purpose of what is before us is to have a rooftop garden with a somewhat small seating area. So looking down the road in the future, should somebody decide not to have a garden there, which is a nice amenity, I think, to have, and decide to do away with that, now all of a sudden you have expanded the potential
That's my point.
sitting area from, Lord knows, I don't know, maybe 20% to almost 100% of that deck. And would anybody entertain a motion that we could, looking forward, if there'd be a problem, to avert that problem by limiting the amount of seating area or requiring that it be, and I don't know how you can do that, because now you get into the policing of whether or not somebody has a garden, and somebody's garden can also be somebody's not so pretty a garden.
I thought of sort of approaching it similarly to you. I was trying to do it on a condition that it only can be used for gardens and limited seating space. But it puts the building department as landscapers. I think it's a little too much of a burden on the city's building department to monitor that. So, if the current seem to have no problem with this and willing to run, quote unquote, the risk, I'm ready to go forward.
Mr. Chair, it's Andrea Hickey speaking.
Yes,
so
Andrea.
I believe one of the current neighbors is sort of a owner of part of the green space, one of the folks who was speaking in favor of it. So that person obviously is biased in support of his own project. I would be for just limiting the use of the area to garden space and leave it at that. I think when you start to use the word seating, then our two folding chairs or one small bench, I don't think we want to get into what seating is, but I think if we would just limit to garden purposes.
Okay, I think we're all on the same page. I'd have to make a slight modification to allow limited seating in the garden area. It just can't, I don't know how to do it, but it would be basically, I would suggest, basically can be used for garden and other green space uses with limited seating for people who want to sit on the roof and appreciate the landscaping that's being done in the gardens. Is that okay with you, Andrea?
Or perhaps not for entertaining or something like that. I don't know.
Well, I don't want to get into the bushes here, but if they have a friend over, and they want to sit up and have drinks outside, and sit among the gardens, I don't have a problem with that. The problem is when you get 20 people up there.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Could I just ask a question to
Yes.
Brian? I'm just curious because structurally, the requirements for having minimal soil for vegetables up there are very different from having a structure that could hold a party, number of people. Do you have any sense what the roof structure is designed for in terms of live loads? Is that
so we had a structural engineer do an analysis.
Barbara, if you could identify yourself for the record, that's all.
This is Barbara Bryant, the owner of 11614 Henry Street. So the structural engineer did an analysis of, and there are standard formulas for a load-bearing roof for the vegetable garden, and so they did that analysis to determine how much weight could be borne. My impression is that is a greater weight than like if you had a roof deck for entertaining or something like that. And in fact, we went through a whole analysis of how to reinforce the current structure in order to put the gardens and containers up there. And that's where we ran into the issue that the recommendation was strongly to rebuild, because doing a retrofit to make sure it was structurally sound with some of the crumbling walls wasn't a great idea. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but.
Okay, so then I was wrong in my assumption, so that's fine.
And Laura, I don't know if you want to explain more.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. The engineer and the architect did design it to hold the load of the planters, which actually are 18-inch soil depth. So it's a pretty hefty structure.
More substantial, yeah.
And then the decking area is, I mean, the whole roof has basically the same structure. So the decking area is designed to support the live load, which I believe is, you know, it's a lot more than the 60 pounds per square foot live load than is required.
Okay. No, I was actually going in a different direction. If it was merely layer of soil, then that might not have the that could support a number of individuals up there. But
right.
You've responded to my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, Cecilia?
No.
No one else wishes to speak from the public. As I mentioned, we do have at least one letter of support in our files and no letter of opposition. So I'm going to close public testimony. I'm going to propose that when I make my motion, that we just don't touch the garden. I think we can put some conditions. Well, what's the sense? Brendan, you would like to see something that says only a small number of people can have seating up there?
I just don't know the actual language. I can't put into words my thoughts very well.
It's not easy, that's the problem.
And so I think that I would accept the plan as presented.
You would not?
I would accept the plan as presented.
Okay. Yeah, this is Jim Monteverdi. Just to help with the language, it seems like we could accept the plan as presented with the walkways around the planting area and the specific seating area shown, period.
Give me that again, Jim, please.
We could accept the planting bed, the plan as shown.
Okay.
With the planting beds, the walkways around it, them, and the specific seating area shown that has a capacity of 8 people. Right? Basically, we're per the plan submitted.
Okay.
Yeah, Jim, good thought.
Yep. Thank you, Jim. Okay, I'm going to make it, and we'll take it from there. The chair moves to make the following findings with regard to the variance being requested. That a literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would involve a substantial hardship. Such hardship being is that there is a old and very garage in very bad condition and needs to be replaced. So, and that applies nothing to do with the current owners. It's the garage's time has come, and it's time for a new one. Second, that the hardship is owing to basically the condition of the structure as it is now. Not going to get any better, so it's time to tear it down and build a new one. I would note, too, that the footprint of the new structure will be identical to the footprint of the old structure. So it's not a situation where open space on the ground is going to be reduced, and that relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good, or substantially derogating from the intent or purpose of this ordinance. What is being proposed will allow these two neighbors to continue to have on-site garage space, and with the added benefit of getting some green space on the roof of the garage. So on the basis of all these findings, the chair moves we grant the variance requested on the condition, subject to the following conditions. One, that the work proceed in accordance with plans presented by the petitioner. These are plans that were prepared by Anthony Sanchez, and I'm looking for the date, I'll find it, dated January 16th of this year, and the first page of which has been initialed by the chair. This applies to both cases, by the way. And second condition, that the rooftop gardens may be maintained in accordance with the railings, the walkways, and the seating space that are shown on the plans now. They can be reduced, but not increased. How do you vote, Brendan?
Brendan Sullivan, yes, to granting the relief for 116, 118, 120, and 122 Henry Street.
Laura?
Yes, in favor. granting relief.
Andrea?
Yes, in favor of granting relief in both related cases.
Okay. And Jim, by the way, before you take your vote, as I framed it, did that satisfactory to you?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. And how do
This is
you
Jim
vote?
Monteverdi, I vote in favor.
And the chair votes in favor of the variances for both properties. Relief granted. Thank you.
Thank you.
The chair will now go back to our continued case agendas. And he's going to call, the chair is calling case number 100817, 56 Churchill Avenue. Anyone here wishing to be heard in this matter?
Just promoting them now.
Good evening, Mr. Chair of the board. My name is Attorney Megan Kemp, representing, from Adam Dash and Associates, 48 Grove Street, Suite 304, Mass, representing the owners of the property, Carrie and Putraj Tanwar. So first I want to thank you for allowing the continuance in March, as our office had just been hired to help sort out some issues that you had pointed out with the application previously. Since then, we've filed a new set of plans and amended the dimensional table and supporting statement in the file. This petition is for a special permit under the subsection 16 of the definition of gross floor area to exempt finished basement space in a dwelling structure that is not a detached single or two family house from the gross floor area. It is not part of the FAR calculation. In essence, what we're looking to do is finish a space of about 314 square feet in an existing basement to create some more livable space for the petitioners and their growing family. It'll result in basically a den where they can now move their home offices downstairs out of their bedrooms, and an additional bathroom where the children coming home from soccer and other practices can rinse off before trampling dirt through the house.
And to get the special permit you're requesting, we have to make a finding that the uses occupying the basement area support the character of the neighborhood or district in which the lot is located.
Correct. And this is a residential district. This is part of a 3-townhouse condo development. It is neighbored by the Burns apartment building on one side, the Matignon High School on the other, and then the North Cambridge residents, dense residents. So this is certainly to create more usable family space in a residential neighborhood to make this something where the family can continue to live here and expand, both for themselves and for any future owners, because there is no space in this area to expand out of the unit. Again, this is a townhouse development, so there are other structures, with party walls right up against it on the lot already. So the only space available is to convert some of the basement in order just to have some additional living space for the family. So everything would be internal to the unit. So there's nothing that would happen externally that would affect any of the neighbors or this wouldn't create any traffic because it's just for use by the family. This isn't, any additional bedrooms or anything like that. There's no additional traffic. It's not going to be a hazard to anyone. It's simply renovating existing space.
Okay, thank you. The chair would report that there is a letter in the file from the condominium association basically approving what is being proposed, and there are no letters from the neighborhood or anywhere else opposition. Questions, Brendan?
Brendan Sullivan, no questions.
Jim?
Jim Monteverdi, no questions.
Andrea?
Andrea, no questions.
Laura?
No questions.
Chair has no questions as well. I don't believe there's any letters in our file. So I will make a motion. The chair moves that we grant the special permit being requested pursuant to section 2(16) of our zoning ordinance, on the grounds that what is being proposed with regard to using this basement space supports the character of the neighborhood or district in which the applicable lot is located. In short, what will happen will be there'll be more living space in this residential structure for the family that now occupies the structure itself. Brendan? Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just, on the basis of, so on the basis of all of these findings, the grant of the special permit, the chair moves we grant the special permit requested on the condition that the work proceed in accordance with plans prepared by Miller Design LLC, the cover page of which has been initialed by the chair. Brendan?
Brendan Sullivan, yes, to granting the special permit.
Laura?
Laura Wernick, yes to granting the special permit.
Andrea?
Andrea Hickey, yes, in favor of the special permit.
Jim?
And Jim Monteverde, yes, in favor of the special.
Chair votes in favor as well. The special permit is granted.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next case on our next case we're supposed to hear is at 7 o'clock. It's a continued case at 7 Springfield Street. And it's not quite 7 yet, so I propose that we recess this hearing until 7 p.m. when we'll reconvene and start with the case 7 Springfield. Thank you.
the over and the under.
I bet you go to 9:10.
Yeah, no, I was thinking,
I'm not gonna go longer than that. Middle limit equals 2 minutes, and we're gonna cut the mics off.
yeah, no, I think you have to.
Okay, 7. Okay, 7. It now being 7 o'clock, the chair is going to reconvene this evening's Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. And we're going to start with the last continued cases, which is advertised for 7 p.m. But before I do so, I just want to quickly confirm that all of the board members are back at their desks or whatever and ready to go. Brendan?
Brendan Sullivan, still present.
Jim? I was afraid of that. Jim? Andrea?
Present.
You're right. Laura?
Present.
Okay. One more time. Jim Monteverdi?
Sorry, Jim Monteverdi's here.
Okay. All right. Now that everybody's here, the chair is going to call case number 107-647, 7 Springfield Street. Anyone here wishing to be heard of this matter?
Good evening, Chair and Board. This is Dan Anderson, also from Anderson Porter Design, 875 Main Street, Cambridge, Mass. And Hudson Santana, as the owner, is also on the call.
Okay, sir, I think it'd be useful if we start your presentation off by reviewing the major changes that you and your client have made to the proposed relief you're seeking from what was proposed the first time around, which didn't go over that well with our board. So what are the major changes?
Sure, happy to. Anderson Porter Design. So previously we were in front of you with a 7-unit project plus commercial with limited parking, seeking a variance for side yard setbacks. We took this back under consideration, met with neighbors who had voiced some opposition, and listened carefully to some of the concerns that you and the board members had. So the proposal that is in front of you is significantly changed in a number of ways. First of all, there is no additions to the structure. We're working with it as is. We are proposing an increase of only 1 unit with no commercial. So the project is a 4-unit structure. It conforms in all ways there with the lot area per dwelling unit as being well below the allowable 1.75 FAR. and has the full 4 parking spaces, so 1 per unit. So we have a large 3-bedroom unit, 2 smaller 1-bedroom units, and a 3-bedroom unit. And feel that this, well, it was received very well by the neighborhood meeting that we had on April 13th. And I would say also addressing other concerns from the board, the primary entry is from the street front, so there is no side entry. This still proposes removing the small concrete set of steps that blocks the easement in the back. So it's used to improve the driveway access for everyone. And since we're not proposing to do any, the previous proposal had additional 3 feet of extension at the rear, although that was allowable under the rear yard setback. That no longer is the case, so that there is increased or sufficient, more than sufficient open space area. The only reasons that we're back in front of you for relief are that we need special permit approval for the changes in the window openings on the side yard setbacks. And because we've added, we've removed any areaway steps, which are also a concern. The reason for a variance would be that we have, guardrails on basement egress and access windows that are in the side yard setback.
You also need, because you're having 4 units too. 4 units is 1 more than is permitted, I believe.
No, 7 were permitted. So we're well under the lot area per dwelling.
No, I understand that, but I thought there was a restriction on the number of units as well in our order. Anyway, it's not worth debating. We use variance, and we'll deal with it in due course. Let me ask you a question. How does one access the parking in the rear of the building? Do you have to go out the front door and walk down the lane, the parking lane?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so it's a narrow, obviously, it's a narrow parking, so it's not the safest way of getting there, but that's a problem for, I suppose, for the people the residents of the structure. They'll know that when they their unit or rent their unit.
That's correct, and limited access as well. It's not like it's a heavily trafficked street.
I see that you still have the decks. Proposing to add decks to each of the 4 units, is that right?
We have rear balconies.
Balconies.
Which,
okay.
That are conforming. They don't. They're well within the rear yard setback, and there is 1 roof deck which is also conforming.
What is the size of these balconies? The 3 balconies are the same dimensions, I believe.
Yeah, they're roughly 3 feet by 6 feet.
3 feet by what?
6 feet.
6 feet. So they're people, more than 1 person can get on that balcony.
Excuse me, they look a bit more than that in width.
And how big is the deck?
10 feet long. It looks, this is Jim Monteverdi. It looks like it's 10 feet long. I'm looking at the drawing, if I'm looking at the correct drawing.
Yeah, I stand corrected. Let me
10 foot
go to
long.
my documents.
It looks like a 4 by 10 or thereabouts.
Yeah, it's 10 feet by 4 feet. I didn't mean to misspeak. I was going based on memory.
Yep.
And what about the roof deck, the one on the top, the 4th?
Also quite small. I believe it's about 5 feet by 10 feet. Let me just.
Okay.
Yeah. 5'7", and I don't have a length on it, but approximately 10 feet.
Well, from my point of view, this is a major problem for me. These decks, or these balconies, as you call them. This is a very tight neighborhood. The buildings are right on top of each other. The potential for noise and disturbance of the neighboring properties is significant. I have a real problem. I don't know other board members. I don't know how the other board members feel, but I'm troubled very much by these balconies and roof deck.
Hi, excuse me. This is Andrea Hickey. Cynthia, could you bring up the drawing showing the balconies?
No, I don't think that's it.
There you go, over on the right-hand side. right? There's a balcony there shown on the second floor, third floor.
Yep.
And then you can see the railing at the rooftop.
Right. There's another drawing that has a different perspective. You can see them coming out from the building, not the lower levels.
Yeah, if you go to the previous elevation, slide 11.
There you go.
That's the one.
So I would be interested in hearing more comments on this, but I think the site does meet the open space requirements, but does not allow a lot of outside private open space. It's predominantly green buffer around parking. I think, as we've all discovered here in pandemic times, people really value some amount of private open. We were proposing those, assuming that they all fit within the allowable gross building area and didn't violate setbacks. Therefore, that was a reasonable proposal. We did have larger decks previously.
Why not Juliet balcony, so that you can't walk out on the deck, but you would have access to the fresh air?
So we have both types. Then Dan Anderson Porter designed the south elevation, which you're seeing now, the right-hand drawing. Those do not protrude. Those are Juliet balconies that are tight against sliding doors. The two that you see projecting on the rear, the lower one is a window well. The two upper projecting balconies, so there are only two of them that are the 4 feet by 10 feet. Those serve the second floor and third floor respectively. And as I said, we reviewed this carefully with neighbors. We had certainly no issue. We had a great deal of I don't know if there's written support for it, but interested to hear more conversation about this.
Yeah, I think Cecilia, sorry, this is Jim Monteverdi. Cecilia, could you go back in the set a bit to the cover sheet? There's an aerial photograph. No, that's it, number 1. And if you can enlarge to the left-hand side, I think that's a neighborhood context. And I think the Juliet balconies are on the face that we're looking at there, the broad face that we're looking at.
That's correct.
The balconies will be around the back, but where you see that vehicle park. And the balconies are kind of facing, there's a blank wall, 2 blank walls at 90-degree angles, then across a roof. So they're kind of removed from where the closest neighbors to them are where the 1369 coffee house is, right on Cambridge Street. Those little dormers that you see, those are the neighbors who are most proximate to it. That's kind of the neighborhood context for it. So I think the 4 by 10, they could be a little bit smaller, but I'm not overly against them. And I can see the difference between those being some type of exterior projection versus the Juliet balconies that are along the entry drive.
I tend to agree with Jim. I think it's not an unreasonable, because of the location, because of the immediate text. I can't believe, I don't think that any disturbance would.
Right. This is Jim Monteverdi. The roof deck may be a different story, because then you're well above the, everybody around. But I think the ones on the second and third floor, I would be okay with them.
This is Andrea Hickey speaking. Cecilia, could you show us the dimensions of the roof deck, please?
Floor plans?
Yeah.
Third floor plan or fourth floor plan?
It's kind of smack in the middle of that drawing. It says 5 foot something across. And then there's no length dimension, but it's, if you can see it, Andrea, it's off of that bedroom.
Yeah.
I'm running my cursor, but you can't.
It's also off of the bedroom, so people have to go upstairs, tromp through someone's bedroom in order to get out to the deck. Not totally conducive for parties, certainly.
Yeah.
And the intention was to have it be very modest. As you can see, I apologize that there's not a length dimension on there. You can see the dashed balcony below, which is 10 feet. So it may be just a little bit short of 10 feet.
I'm all set with that. Thank you. This is Andrea again.
Thank you, Andrew. Brendan, you have anything you want to add?
No, I think the other members of the board have covered my concerns anyhow, and the other members of the board have covered any concerns, questions that I would have, and the answers forthcoming, so I'm all set.
This is Jim Monteverdi again, Mr. Chair. If I can ask a different question?
Of course. Of course.
Can you, I'm trying to follow, what's the height in the base? It's the FAR, and it's the total square footage that your dimensional form that's on your sheet Z 1.1 that says it includes the basement square footage. What's the height of that basement, to the underside of the framing currently?
I believe that it is 7 foot and something. I took essentially, even if it were, I believe that it's accurate in saying that we're not increasing the net square footage. But even if we were to, if it were like say 6'5" and we were to excavate and add that as gross square footage, still would be under the allowable FAR because it's calculated as if.
Yeah, I noticed that. As opposed to the ordinance of 1.75, you still come up to 1.26 with it, or even with it.
Yeah, and we didn't even bother, excluding mechanical space, which there's mechanical and storage down there.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. I'm sorry. Anything further you want to add before I open the matter up to public testimony?
Unless there are more questions from the board, I think that I've given as broad an overview as I can. So
okay, no, that's fine. I didn't know if we got you, we diverted you. I wanted to make sure you had an opportunity to get to all of what you want to say. So.
No, thank you. I think I've covered it.
I'll open the matter up to public testimony. Brendan, you have any?
I have no other.
No,
questions.
Nothing. Jim?
No, sir.
Laura?
No, I do not.
Okay, and Andrea?
I have nothing further. Thank you.
Okay. All right, now we'll open the matter up to public testimony. Any members of the public who wish to speak should now click the icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen that is raise hand. If you are calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and unmute or mute by pressing *6. Take a few moments to see if anyone wishes to avail themselves of this privilege.
I don't see any raised hands.
Okay, looks like there is no one has raised their